All right, so we're back for another deep dive. And as always, we like to pick some really interesting cases to talk about.
Right.
And this one I think is really interesting. It's a true crime case that's been unsolved for years, and it's called the Hollow Man killings.
Wow.
Yeah, so we're working off of a podcast episode called Shadows of the Past. And
Okay.
it's got like everything you could want in true crime case. We're talking about unsolved murders and mysterious symbols and like a killer who just vanished into thin air.
Oh, wow. That sounds super interesting and creepy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know, right?
So where do we even begin with this?
Yeah, so let's just jump right into it. So the case starts in the fall of 2009
Okay.
in a small town called Fairhaven.
Hmm.
And our first victim is Margaret Hayes.
Okay.
She was a local artist and she was found dead in her home.
So what makes this different than a regular, homicide?
Yeah, so that's the interesting part. It's not just that she was found dead, but her body was carefully posed.
Uh,
And then carved into the walls around her were all these symbols. And investigators later figured out that these symbols were connected to some ancient alchemical texts.
Ancient alchemy, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, that is kind of a fascinating uh, twist to this case.
Yeah. It's I think of alchemy as that's the medieval precursor to chemistry.
Right.
People trying to turn lead into gold.
Yeah. Yeah.
What does that have to do with a murder case?
Well, alchemy wasn't just about, you know, turning metals into gold or whatever. It was like a really complex philosophical system
Right.
and spiritual system too, with its own symbols and rituals.
Okay.
So, when an investigator saw that, they were like, oh, this has got to be some kind of ritualistic killing.
Okay, so did they find any evidence of I don't know, a coven or something, like a meeting gone wrong?
Well, actually, no, they didn't.
Oh,
Yeah, Margaret Hayes, she was kind of a loner,
okay.
and there was no sign of forced entry.
Okay.
And she didn't really seem to have any enemies,
Huh.
at least none that anyone knew of.
Okay.
So that kind of made the whole ritualistic angle a little less likely.
Okay.
In fact, some of the investigators even started to think that maybe the symbols were like a red herring.
Okay.
Like the killer put them there to mislead them on purpose.
Wow, that's a pretty bold move for a killer.
Right.
To put all that effort in just to throw the cops off.
Yeah,
It kind of makes you think they know a little bit about how investigations work.
that's right.
Maybe even some forensic science.
Possibly. Yeah.
Okay, but wait, there's more to the story, right?
Oh, yeah, there's a lot more.
So Margaret, she wasn't the only victim.
No, she wasn't. So over the next year, 4 more victims were found
Oh, wow.
in neighboring towns.
Okay.
And they were all posed similarly to Margaret.
Oh.
And they all had the same alchemical symbols carved near their bodies.
So this is starting to sound like a serial killer.
Yeah, it definitely was.
Wow.
And you can imagine the fear that was spreading through these communities.
Oh,
I mean, it was like an invisible predator was stalking them.
yeah, that would be terrifying to think that there's somebody out there doing this and you don't know who it is or
Right.
when they're going to strike again.
Exactly.
So did the police have any suspects at this point?
You would think, right, with all these killings.
Yeah, they had to have something to go on.
But the killer was incredibly meticulous.
Really?
They didn't leave behind any fingerprints,
Wow.
no DNA,
Okay.
no obvious motive.
So like a ghost.
Yeah, it was like they were chasing a ghost. That's what one of the detectives said.
A ghost.
But they did have a couple of leads.
Okay, well that's something, right?
Yeah.
So who are they looking at?
Well, one of the leads was a local professor
Okay.
who specialized in medieval history and symbolism.
Okay, so he knew about this stuff.
Yeah, he recognized the symbols right away.
Okay.
But
Right.
he had an alibi,
Oh.
a really solid alibi.
Okay.
Multiple witnesses placed him somewhere else.
All right, so he's out. So we've got a killer who seems to know a lot about alchemy.
Yeah.
They're staging these elaborate crime scenes, and they're not leaving any trace of who they are.
That's right.
This is already one of the most baffling cases I've ever heard of.
It is.
But it gets even creepier, right?
Well, yeah.
There's that whole thing with the lead detective feeling like he was being watched.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
What was that all about?
So the lead detective, his name was Alan Greer.
Okay.
He was working late one night at the station
Mm-hmm.
by himself,
Right.
going over the case files.
Yeah.
And he could have sworn that he heard whispers.
Oh, no.
Yeah, but he was alone in the building.
Oh, that's creepy.
And then later, when he was looking at the crime scene photos,
Yeah.
he spotted something really unsettling in one of the pictures.
What was it?
It looked like a human-shaped shadow
Oh, my God.
lurking in the background.
Like a person.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the forensic team They analyzed the photo, and they couldn't explain it. It wasn't a trick of the light or a camera glitch. It was just there.
That's so spooky.
Yeah, it really is.
Okay, so a shadow figure appears in a crime scene photo.
Right.
What do you think was the killer there, like watching the whole time unseen?
I mean, it's possible.
That is so creepy.
Yeah, that's a very unsettling thought.
Okay, so did they ever catch this guy? Did the killings ever stop?
Well, that's the thing. After the fifth murder,
Yeah.
everything just stopped.
Wait, so they just stopped killing people?
Yeah.
Just like that?
Yeah, just like that.
No explanation, no final message, no nothing.
Nothing.
Wow.
It's almost more unnerving than the crimes themselves.
Okay, so you're telling me that this killer just disappeared
That's right.
without a trace?
Vanished. Like a ghost.
So are they still out there?
We don't know.
This is crazy. This is like one of the most baffling cases I have ever heard of.
It really is.
It makes you wonder what kind of person could do something like this and then just disappear.
Yeah. It definitely makes you think about the darkness that can exist in the world.
Yeah, like right under our noses.
Right.
Wow. Okay, so what do we do now? Where do we go from here?
Well, I think we need to dig a little deeper into the different theories about who this killer might be.
Okay, that sounds like a good plan.
Yeah.
So let's take a closer look at those theories and see if we can make any sense of this whole thing.
Okay, let's do it. That sudden silence,
Yeah.
after the fifth murder, it's one of the most intriguing parts of this whole case.
Yeah, it really is. It's like the killer was making a statement or something, but then they just disappeared.
Right, exactly.
So, okay, let's get into those theories that you mentioned.
Yeah.
Like, where do we even begin with a case this complex?
Well, I think one of the most popular theories out there is that the killer might have been a member of some, secret cult.
A cult. Okay. I mean, I can see why people would think that.
Right.
Especially with the alchemical symbols.
Yeah, it all kind of fits together, right? The symbols, the ritualistic posing. Yeah. It's like something out of a movie.
But wouldn't a cult, like, especially one that's, performing ritualistic killings,
Yeah.
wouldn't they leave some kind of trace?
That's the problem with the cult theory.
Okay.
Investigators couldn't find any evidence of any cult activity in the area.
Really?
Nope. No missing persons reports, no signs of any weird gatherings, nothing.
So, like, no secret societies, no, chanting in the woods or anything like that?
No, not that they could find.
Okay, so the cult theory, it's a good one, but it doesn't seem to hold up.
Yeah, not really.
So what else have investigators considered?
Well, another theory is that the killer was someone who was really into art history and symbolism.
Okay.
Like maybe they were using the murders as some kind of twisted artistic expression.
A killer as an artist.
Yeah, think of it as a macabre performance.
Wow.
Where each crime scene is carefully staged to convey a specific message.
That's a pretty chilling thought.
It is.
But I can see how it could fit with, the meticulous planning, the symbols, the whole theatricality of the crime. Right. It's like they were creating a work of art out of murder.
Exactly. And this theory suggests that, the killer wasn't motivated by just rage or bloodlust.
Okay.
But something more complex, like a need to create.
Yeah.
To leave their mark on the world, even if it was a horrifying and tragic one.
But if the killings were some kind of artistic expression, then, what message were they trying to send?
That's the big question, right?
Yeah, and who was their audience?
Right, were they trying to communicate with the victims or the investigators or maybe even the public at large?
Yeah, it's like a puzzle.
It is, and it's one that continues to baffle everyone who's looked at this case.
So we've got a potential cult connection that doesn't seem to be going anywhere, and the possibility of a killer artist using murder as their canvas.
Right.
Are there any other theories that might explain what happened in Fairhaven?
Well, we can't rule out the classic revenge scenario.
Revenge.
Yeah. Could these murders have been motivated by a grudge? Or maybe a desire to right some past wrong, or even a twisted sense of justice?
Yeah, a revenge plot. That makes sense. Maybe the victims were connected somehow?
Yeah.
Like maybe through a shared history or a business deal gone wrong or even a personal relationship that went sour?
It happens all the time.
Yeah. Good.
But the problem is,
Yeah.
investigators, they looked into all that.
Okay.
And they couldn't find any strong connections between the victims.
Really?
Yeah, they all came from different backgrounds.
Okay.
At different social circles.
So no secret love affairs, no hidden financial ties, no long-lost family connections.
Not that they could find.
So it seems like we're back to square one?
It is a frustrating case.
Yeah.
Very frustrating.
And then there's that whole paranormal thing we talked about earlier,
Yeah.
like the detective hearing whispers,
Yeah.
the shadow in the crime scene photo. I mean, that stuff's creepy.
It is.
And it just adds another layer of complexity to this whole thing.
Definitely.
So do you think there's any chance that something supernatural was actually going on here?
Well, it's tempting to think about that,
Right.
especially with a case this strange.
Yeah.
But I think we have to be skeptical.
Okay.
Could there be a more rational explanation?
Right.
Maybe the detective was just tired, overworked. His mind was playing tricks on him.
So.
And the shadow in the photo.
Hmm.
Maybe it was just an anomaly,
Yeah.
a trick of the light or a problem with the film developing process.
I get it. It's important to stick to the facts.
Yeah,
But, like, a part of me wants to believe that there are things out there that we can't explain.
I know what you mean.
It would certainly make this case a lot more interesting.
It would.
But even if we set aside the paranormal stuff for now, we're still left with a really unsettling mystery.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, why did the killings stop so suddenly?
Wait a
What
minute.
was the killer's motive?
Uh-huh.
And are they still out there?
Those are all good questions.
Yeah. And unfortunately, we might never have the answers.
It's possible.
But I think it's important to keep asking those questions.
I agree.
And to keep searching for the truth, even if it's elusive.
Yeah, because the truth is out there somewhere.
It is.
We just have to find it.
Okay, so let's keep digging and see what else we can uncover about the Hollow Man killings.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, so welcome back to our deep dive into the Hollow Man killings. And, we've covered a lot of ground so far, the details of the crimes, that lack of motive, all the different theories.
Yeah, we've really gone through it.
We have, and I have to say, I'm still kind of baffled by it all.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, but before we wrap things up, I want to take a moment to just remember the victims.
Absolutely.
It's easy to get caught up in all the theories and the investigation and everything.
Yeah.
But we can't forget that these were real people with real lives.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point to remember.
Yeah, so let's talk about them. Let's give them back the names, their stories, even if it's just for a few minutes,
Yeah, let's do that. So our first victim was Margaret Hayes. She was a really talented artist. She lived a very quiet life, kind of kept to herself.
Yeah.
But she was known for her beautiful landscape paintings and her nature studies.
Okay.
And her neighbors, they all described her as being really kind and gentle, always willing to help out.
It's just heartbreaking to think that someone like that, could become the victim of such a brutal crime.
It is.
So what about the other victims? What were their stories?
Well, each of them had their own unique life, their
Right.
own circle of friends and family, their own dreams and aspirations.
Mm-hmm.
There was Daniel Cooper. He was a young, aspiring writer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was working on his first novel,
That's cool.
and he was full of energy and passion, always sharing his latest ideas with anyone who would listen.
Yeah.
And then there was Emily Carter.
Okay.
She was a dedicated teacher who just loved working with children.
Ah.
Yeah, she was known for her patience and her kindness.
Mm.
She had this amazing ability to inspire a love of learning in her students.
Wow. So these were people who were making a real difference in their communities.
Exactly.
People who were loved and valued. And it's senseless that their lives were cut short like that.
It really is, and that's what makes this case so difficult to come to terms with.
Yeah.
There's no easy explanation.
Yeah.
No clear motive that could possibly justify that level of cruelty.
Right.
It just forces us to confront the fact that evil exists in the world sometimes for no reason at all.
Yeah. And it's a reminder that we can never really know what's going on in the minds of other people.
Right.
What darkness they might be hiding.
Exactly.
But, we've talked about the victims and it's important to remember them.
Yes.
But we also have to think about the impact that these crimes had on the community as a whole.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, imagine living in a town where something so horrific has happened.
Yeah.
The fear, the suspicion, the way changes how people interact with each other and their surroundings.
Yeah. I can't even imagine.
It really does erode the fabric of trust. And it creates this sense of vulnerability that could just linger for years.
So did Fairhaven ever really recover from this?
Well, recovery from something like this is a long and complex process.
Yeah.
It's not about forgetting or moving on. It's about finding ways to cope and to heal
Yeah.
and to rebuild that sense of community.
They managed to do that.
Well, from what I've read, the people of Fairhaven and the surrounding towns, they showed incredible resilience.
Really?
Yeah. They came together to support each other. They honored the memory of the victims, and they worked really hard to create a safer, more connected community.
So they didn't let this tragedy define them.
No, they didn't.
They found a way to move forward.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
It's a really powerful testament to the strength of the human spirit. You know? that
Yeah.
ability to find hope and unity even in the darkest of times.
And even though the Hollow Man case remains unsolved, it sounds like the community's efforts to heal and rebuild really speak volumes about their determination to create a better future.
Absolutely. They refuse to let this tragedy break them.
That's really inspiring.
It is.
Well, I think we've covered just about everything we can on the Hollow Man killings.
Yeah, I think so.
And even though we may never know for sure who the killer was or why they did what they did, I think we can all agree that this case is a chilling reminder of the darkness that can exist in the world.
And the mysteries that continue to baffle us.
Exactly. But it's also a story of resilience and the power of community to overcome even the most unimaginable tragedy.
Well said.
So thank you for joining us on this deep dive, and we hope you found it as thought-provoking and maybe even as unsettling as we did.
Yes, thank you for listening.
And until next time, stay curious, keep exploring, and remember the truth is out there somewhere.